A few months ago, a woman that knows my father came to me and asked me if I knew anything about the chemicals they cause seizures, because she's just started having seizures out of the blue. And lots of people tell us about cancer, rashes, coughing, upper respiratory infections. This part of the county has the highest rates of cancer. And at one point, we were told the highest rates of asthma.
Eboni Cochran is married with 3 children. She lives on Louisville's west side.
The reason that we chose this neighborhood is because of, actually, my grandparents were the first family. My grandparents and their children are the first family to move in the house in the 50s. I just love this house. It's very familiar, and I really like the neighborhood.
The home and neighborhood Eboni Cochran loves is in Rubbertown, a chemical manufacturing district.
These circles are landfills, that there are landfills in that area, one that's been designated as a Superfund site.
When we first purchased this house, I actually did not know, and I'm telling you the truth, I did not know that there were chemical plants right around the corner. I didn't. I was actually disappointed in myself. I should have known this.
Eboni is also a leader of REACT, a nationwide effort to hold companies accountable for the effects of toxic emissions in communities.
I've been concerned about the community. So much asthma. No fruit trees will grow down here in the West End.
My name is Reverend Fred R. Withers. I live in the Rubbertown community. It has affected my health, my neighbors' health, friends and other family members.
I brought these photographs of how Rubbertown is affecting our communities by way of chemicals that are transported on the rails. This top picture shows a young man named Michael. I actually met him the day that I shot this. I was going around trying to take different shots of how the rail cars were parked so closely to residential areas. And I asked him, did you know that that's a 1,3-butadiene tank? And he said no. And I said, did you know that it's a carcinogen? And he said no. I said, did you know that it's an explosive hazard? He said no. And I said, has anyone ever come to you and told you about how dangerous it is to live near these rail cars? And he said no.
Unlike many American homeowners, Rubbertown residents find it difficult to see their homes as a step forward in their future and their children's.
They can't get out. They don't have the money just to walk out and leave the house and go buy a house someplace else. They're stuck in those communities.
REACT is fighting the effects of decisions that arguably shouldn't have been made in the first place. Decisions that not only harm health, but disempower residents. Fighting the chemical companies is good for health on many levels.
Fundamentally, we're talking largely about making democracy work so that communities that have been disenfranchised, that have essentially been marginalized, whose voice doesn't count as much, are heard and have control over their own destiny. And in fact, if you had to boil this down to one thing, it's a sense of control over one's destiny.
For the last several years, we've been asking the Air Pollution Control District to come up with standard operating procedures for these odor investigations, which they've not done. We believe the community has a right to know what they're smelling, if it's toxic, and what's going to happen to resolve the problem. Sometimes when I get discouraged or I'm like, oh, I hate this, I don't want to do it, I'm just going to tell somebody else to do it. What I do is think back to when Black people in America or Africans in America were enslaved. And to me, it's almost the same thing with these chemical plants. We can't give up, even though some people feel helpless and don't feel the ability to help. Those of us who know that this fight must continue the fight. We're not really fighting for ourselves because, like I said, some of us are already sick in this neighborhood. The people we're fighting for are the children.